Police officers of Reddit, who's the smartest criminal you've ever encountered? Most of them are really stupid, so this guy isn't a criminal mastermind, but here goes. He wanted to rob a jeweler's on our city's main street. So he found out the flat beside the jeweler's was empty and he hid there. For 2 weeks he triggered the alarm on purpose several times a night. Massive headache for the police and the business. We turned up to see nothing there. Nothing on cameras. Thought it was just a fluke, so the jewelers turned off the alarm system and said they'd wait until the morning to get a new one installed, or that one rewired, because something wasn't right. As soon as he heard that and the police leaving, he tore down the wall. Had already been working on this apparently, and robbed the place, taking his sweet time. Escaped without anyone noticing anything for hours, until the jewelers came back in the morning. Then he tried to resell something he stole which had a serial number on it and got caught. So not that smart after all. Good effort though. He did all the hard work pretty well. AIDK. The hardest part about stealing high-dollar goods is selling the merch. Edit. Of course my top comment is about criminal activity. Thanks Reddit. A friend of my brother moved to Israel, where for a period of time it is acceptable to drive with an American driver's license. He was pulled over for speeding, and when asked for his license, gave the officer his Costco card. Costco is a membership-based retail warehouse in the US and a few other countries. The exchange apparently went something like this. Officer: Costco. What is Costco? Quote: Friend: It's the state I'm from, monsieur. Officer: That sounds made up. Friend: There are lots of states you probably haven't heard of. Have you heard of Arkansas? How about Idaho? Quote: Officer: I guess not. Friend: Well, I'm from the small state of Costco. The officer didn't have a response and wound up writing the ticket to someone with a Costco driver's license. Friend framed the ticket and still has it hanging on his wall. Reminds me of a family friend of mine. Very funny Australian with an absolutely horrendous bogan accent. Well, late 80s, he's driving through Texas and runs a red light, and is immediately pulled over by a 250-pound Texan police officer with an equally horrendous accent. The way the stories goes, this man is obviously not the brightest chap. So our friend, when asked about running the red light, gets very apologetic and explains that he gets easily confused because in Australia, you know how things are reversed down there. Red means go and green means stop. The cop actually let this man go with a warning. I did not know that. Well, in America, red means stop, so don't make this mistake again. Well, there was this one guy. We'll call him Jack. Now, Jack stole stuff but also involved a lot of people. One time, he was planning to steal a whole bunch of cars. All luxury cars. So what he did was he got his people to call 911, etc., from all different places and countries, to tell them that car theft was taking place in multiple places. Oh, he also only used a few people each time. So it was different voices, people, locations, etc. So the police went each time, until he actually did the crime. Then no one came. He was never caught. When the owner of those cars came, the police didn't believe. Hi monsieur. 10 out of 10. Genius right there. He sort of used the boy who cried wolf story in real life to his advantage. The damn wolf learned to cry wolf. There was a guy with over 50 speeding charges, with the name Prawo Jazdy. He was in a different car, with a different disguise every single time. Eventually, after the government set up a special task force to take down this guy, they realized that Prawo Jazdy means driver's license in Polish. Clarification: it was 50 different people. The police just wrote down their name as Prawo Jazdy every time someone with a Polish driver's license was caught speeding. Here's one. I knew this guy back in the early 80s. Let's call him G. Monsieur. Well, he really wanted this high-powered superbike, but he knew he couldn't ever afford it. So what he did was to take drive to London and scout it about for a few days until he found that particular model parked outside a house. He goes back that night with a slide hammer, pulls the lock, and steals the bike. He gets it home, puts it in his garage and completely strips it so that the only thing left is the frame and the bottom half of the engine, which he drags into the weeds at the bottom of his garden. Then he pours fuel over it and burns it a bit. A few weeks pass and weeds have started growing over it. It's at that point he calls the cops and reports that someone had dumped a bike frame in his garden. The cops show up and he explains that he just got back from being away and found it. The cops take the frame and note down his name and address. A few days later, the cops call him and say that the bike had been stolen from London a month or so ago, from the serial number on the bottom half of the engine and frame, and that the insurance company had classed the bike as a write-off, and had told the cops to dispose of it. Now, because the frame was found in his garden and the insurance company didn't want it, the cops were duty-bound to ask him if he wanted to keep it, or if they should throw it. So he tells them that he'd always wanted to build a bike. He gets the frame back from them, repaints it, then puts it all back together and re-registers it as AQ Reg. Stolen and recovered. I forgot to call him Jim, didn't I? Edit. To all the people asking if I'm Jim. No, I'm not. I knew him well though. We went to school together and he lived a few doors down from me. I had my own group of friends and occasionally went out at the pub. We would bump into him and he'd tell us of his exploits without a care in the world. As far as that bike goes, he proudly told a few people about it. But you know, we don't grasp. He crashed the bike a few months later and was injured, but I can't remember how. He was pretty much a career criminal the last time I saw him, and ended up in jail for a while. While many regard him as scum, I always felt bad for him. Both his parents died before he was 12 and he was in and out of care homes for years. Out of his 4 brothers, one was murdered, the other died of an asthma attack, and another committed suicide. He could never hold down a job and also suffered from depression. The bloke had a shit life. It's been more than 25 years since I saw him last and I often wonder how he's doing. Edit 2. Thanks for the gold, my man. I always laugh when somebody names a character and then proceeds to never use the name. Nice catch. Working in a home improvement store when younger. This guy came in, went to the snow blowers, took one and went to the return desk. Said he wanted to return it but had no receipt. They told him you need a receipt, so he says okay, I'll be back, and wheels it off to car through the front door. He did this a few times apparently. Couple places even helped him load it back into his car. Had a guy try that with a big expensive bedding sets at Sears back 20 years ago. He came up the escalator empty-handed, walked into the first aisle, and came out carrying the set. He said he wanted to return it. I said I needed a receipt, and when he asked why, I explained, well, sometimes we have issues with people coming up here, taking stuff off the shelves and trying to return it. He got a bit squirrely, looked around kinda panicked and left with it. On the way to the door, security started following him, so he threw it at them and sprinted out the door. Obligatory, not a cop, but close on. 20 years ago now, a guy on Australia's Gold Coast got away with a bank robbery in broad daylight. He cased the bank for a while and discovered a pattern of the bank manager arriving about 30 minutes before anyone else each morning, where he would leave the front doors unlocked so staff could help themselves in without a key or needing to wait for the boss to come and let them in. One morning the crook dressed himself up for a busy day of office work and waited for the bank manager to arrive. As the manager was unlocking the doors, he made his move, entering the building and threatening the manager with a gun. He got all the details he'd need to access the vault and so forth, and then tied the manager up and stuffed him in his office. When the staff arrived, he told them that the manager had called in sick in that regional office. had sent him in to do the open shop thing and no one batted an eyelid. This bank had a small walk-in vault that normally only held about 30 to 50K on any given day, but old mate had timed his robbery for the morning after business banking day when all the local small businesses would make their end-of-week deposits and reportedly got a score of close to 250K. Once the vault was open, he pulled his gun out and invited all the staff to enter the vault and lock them in. By this stage, the bank was due to be open, so when he went to leave, there were a number of customers waiting to get inside to do their banking. He told them all that there had been an issue with the computers and that the tech team had estimated it would take about 30 minutes before the issue would be resolved, and that they couldn't open until then. Then he got into his car and drove straight to the airport and flew to Hong Kong and then disappeared. To my knowledge, the cops never caught him and never managed to find the money. They knew he'd have had to leave most of it in Australia somewhere because you can only take 10K AUD in cash in any currency out of the country before customs pulls you into their interview rooms, so the assumption was that he had to have an accomplice here who would funnel the money to him slowly over time. Edit. For those wondering, he was identified later after witness statement and CCTV led to his getaway car being discovered at the airport where he boarded a plane destined for Hong Kong, which is as far as they could track. Hi monsieur. That's a lot of trust to put in one person who's in another country from you and with leverage over you. It'd be really smart in this situation to use an immigrant from Hong Kong to funnel the money back. Ideally an immigrant with family back in Hong Kong. Funnel the payments is sending money to your family back home, which is super common anyways. The thief gives a percentage to the family or maintains their lifestyle in exchange for the transfers. Now the funneler has leverage over the thief in the form of his known whereabouts. The thief has leverage over the funneler by taking care of the latter's family. Mutually assured destruction if either ever flips. Thank you for watching.